A prison without walls looks a lot like a modern city. The inmates wouldn't be held by fear, they'd be anchored by their own pleasure. When distraction and instant gratification become the primary metrics of life, the line between technology and a sedative begins to disappear. This specific architecture of control appeared in 1932. Political philosophers often discuss negative liberty, the idea that you are free simply because no physical force or violent authority is currently stopping you from acting. This focus on physical coercion can mask more subtle methods of control. We look for chains on our wrists, failing to notice the systems that direct our desires from within. Aldous Huxley realized that the future of tyranny would bypass the need for physical prisons or boots on the ground. During a visit to the Billingham chemical plant, he watched a massive, ordered universe operate with relentless efficiency. It was a world of planned coherence. Huxley saw the blueprint for a new kind of state in the American assembly line. He recognized that Henry Ford's methods of mass production could be applied to more than just cars. If a state could organize society around comfort and industrial efficiency, it could achieve absolute control without ever resorting to fear. In Huxley's Brave New World, the world state maintains stability through biological design. Conflict and violence are replaced by a system of precisely designed social roles. This is the Bokanovsky process. A biological assembly line fractures a single fertilized egg into dozens of identical twins. They are then sorted into a 5-tier hierarchy: alphas bred for leadership, epsilons limited to menial labor, their entire futures predetermined before leaving the bottle. Biological predestination is the ultimate barrier to rebellion. It is difficult to fight against a social status that your brain was specifically manufactured to accept. The state reinforces this biology through hypnopedia, or sleep learning. From childhood, citizens listen to recorded slogans that loop while they sleep. This conditioning follows the principles of Ivan Pavlov. By pairing specific stimuli with pleasure or discomfort, the state trains its citizens to love their servitude. This system reflects a model of soft paternalism. The world state interferes with citizen autonomy by claiming to maximize their welfare, using padded barriers to guide them toward predetermined choices. By removing struggle and suffering, the state erodes the human capacity for self-determination. They have traded positive liberty for a life of managed contentment. For moments when conditioning fails, the state mandates the use of soma, a drug that provides artificial happiness and instant tranquility. Soma functions as a tool of social control. It suppresses independent thought and negative emotion at the moment of impact, ensuring no citizen remains unhappy for long. The logic of the world state is represented by Mustafa Mond, a character named after the industrialist Lord Melchett. Mond argues that high art, true, authentic science, and deep human connections are fundamentally dangerous. They create instability. In a perfect utilitarian society, these things are seen as unnecessary complications. For Mond, maximizing societal happiness demands the removal of individual identity and objective truth. We often compare our world to the authoritarian brutality described by George Orwell, but the critic Neil Postman noted a different threat. Orwell feared those who would ban books. Huxley seared a world where no one wanted to read one. Orwell feared we would be controlled by pain. Huxley feared we would be controlled by pleasure. The citizens of Huxley's Brave New World were never actually chained. They simply forgot how to desire freedom. The world state model relies on the pursuit of convenience. It suggests that a population can be pacified by its own desire for comfort. Imagine a society where nobody is ever sad, nobody gets sick, and nobody ever feels the sting of loneliness. It is a world of endless comfort, effortless pleasure, and absolute stability, engineered down to the last detail. But in this flawless paradise, one person is suffocating. He rejects the perfect smiles. He wants something real, even if it means suffering. This is the premise of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. The society he envisions is governed by a concept philosophers call welfare paternalism. It is the idea that the state knows exactly what is best for you, and it will intervene to guarantee your happiness, programming it into you from the exact moment you are conceived. Citizens in this society are not born, they are decanted in massive state hatcheries. embryos are chemically dosed to fit specific intelligence casts, and infants are raised using hypnopedia, sleep learning. Whispered slogans play continuously through the night, conditioning every child to eagerly accept their assigned place in the social hierarchy. Huxley wrote the novel in 1931, watching the rapid rise of industrial mass production. He looked at the rigorous efficiency of the early automobile assembly line and imagined that exact same mechanical standardization applied to human biology. In this fictional future, Henry Ford is worshipped as a deity. Citizens measure time in years after Ford and revere him as the ultimate architect of predictability and mass consumption. When an entire population is biologically designed and psychologically trained to desire exactly what the state provides, you don't need to build walls. The citizens will happily enforce their own captivity. Enter John the Savage. He is the anomaly, a man born naturally and raised on an isolated reservation entirely outside the world state's control. While the world state eradicated physical pain and aging with daily rations of a tranquilizing drug called soma, John grew up surrounded by disease, religion, aging, and the raw, unfiltered emotional chaos of Shakespeare. This diagram illustrates a philosophical concept called Kantian autonomy. Immanuel Kant argued that true freedom requires the capacity to govern your own choices based on objective moral truths. Doing the right thing often means walking a difficult, jagged path, rather than cruising endlessly along a smooth, state-mandated line of mindless pleasure. A similar idea comes from the 19th century philosopher John Stuart Mill. He argued that a person's desires and impulses must be entirely their own to have any real character. If your impulses are simply programmed into you by a sleep machine, you are practically a steam engine, performing a set function rather than actually living. John recognizes that the world state has made a fatal trade. By eliminating pain and preventing anyone from making an authentic, unconditioned choice, the society has completely destroyed the capacity for genuine human connection. John's worldview eventually collides with Mostafa Mond, the resident world controller of Western Europe and the hyper-intelligent architect of the society's stability. Huxley named his villain carefully. Mond draws inspiration from Sir Alfred Mond, a British industrialist, and Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, a real-world leader who radically modernized the remnants of the Ottoman Empire into a highly structured, top-down nation. Mond knows exactly what his society lost. He openly admits that high art, pure science, and personal freedom were intentionally sacrificed. But the payoff was the complete and permanent eradication of war, starvation, and misery. This animation represents extreme utilitarianism. Mond's imperative is maximizing collective happiness. If ejecting individual agency keeps the massive block of societal stability intact, he makes the trade. To enforce compliance, he relies on psychological conditioning and daily doses of hallucinogenic drugs, dissolving the individual into a uniform network of identical citizens loving their servitude. Mond isn't a cartoon villain acting out of malice. He is executing a perfectly rational philosophy. If you truly believe that suffering is the only evil in the world, then engineering away human freedom is the logical solution. John rejects this logic entirely. He argues that taking away the struggle strips away our humanity. A life completely devoid of friction is a life without meaning. Facing the world controller, John makes his ultimate demand. He claims the right to be unhappy. He demands the right to disease, to read poetry, to search for God, and to commit sin. Seeking spiritual autonomy, John flees into the wilderness to live an ascetic, isolated life. But a society built on constant stimulation won't let him go. He is tracked down by reporters and swarming crowds, pinned under the lights, and turned into a mindless spectacle for mass entertainment. Overwhelmed by the mob, John is drawn into a soma-fueled frenzy. When he wakes the next morning and realizes his mind surrendered to the very conditioning he hated, his shame is absolute. Realizing true autonomy is impossible in this world, he hangs himself. A paternalistic system optimized entirely for pleasure has zero tolerance for friction. Any individual who tries to assert authentic moral autonomy will inevitably be crushed under the weight of engineered happiness. We don't have mandatory government rations of soma today. We have a digital equivalent, engineered to trigger the exact same dopamine receptors. We live under algorithmic paternalism. Modern technology platforms act as our world controllers, and their primary mandate is to exclusively optimize for our comfort and our engagement. These systems build a tightening bubble around the user, shielding us from opposing viewpoints and feeding us a continuous, hypnotic loop of comforting signals. Just like Huxley's sleep learning, these algorithms effortlessly pull passive consumers down a funnel of predictable behaviors. For decades, society was terrified of George Orwell's 1984. We feared a violent, totalitarian state that would burn books, conceal the truth, and use pain to force obedience. Huxley feared the exact opposite. He warned that the truth wouldn't be hidden by the state. It would simply be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Modern citizens are not being forced into compliance by a dictator. We are being nudged into total passivity by the sheer convenience of consumerism. This control normalizes right in front of us. Through pervasive advertising and endless scrolling, we slowly begin to move and think in digital unison. The greatest threat to freedom isn't an oppressive government breaking down your door. It is our own willingness to voluntarily surrender our autonomy just to stay comfortable. If someone offered you absolute comfort, effortless pleasure, safety, and guaranteed happiness, what freedom would you be willing to trade away?